Hi, this is your host, Laura Powers, and I'm so pleased today to have Aimee Carlson on the show. She is known as the Toxin Terminator. She's just been an entrepreneur for 30 years, and her current passion is obviously toxins, hence the names. And I'm so excited to talk with you about this. It's something that's really close to my heart, and I think really important for people in their obviously wellness journey, but also just in their life and an ability to have a good life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you, your backstory, and how you got to be known as the Toxin Terminator.
Sure, Laura. Thank you so much for having me on. I love sharing my story because I feel like I'm just like everybody else. I was living life, not understanding that some of the things that were going on with myself and my body were actually self-inflicted by the choices that I was making with some of the products in my home. And I suffered from a lot of chronic disease. So I had things neurologically going on with me. I had things going on reproductively for years, with my body. And what I found was after I'd been through the medical side over and over and being given different medications and nothing working and parts taken out and, you go here and you do this, that actually I was able to relieve many of the symptoms that I was suffering from when I got all the products in my house to a natural base where I didn't have a lot of the fragrances in my home. That solved all my neurological issues and getting rid of some of the other endocrine disrupting, products in my home. I was able to not have the imbalance in the hormone system happening like what was going on with my body.
Yeah, this is so important. And I feel like most people have no idea just how toxic a lot of these fragrances are. And
Right.
that fragrance is just this sort of catch-all for almost anything that can be put in there. And because it can be considered proprietary, whatever, they don't have to list the ingredients. And there's very few things where you could just be like, oh, I'm just going to put anything in here and it could just be under this label. But that's basically what that is like, as well as like natural and artificial flavors is kind of similar. It's just like, it basically can be anything. And if you have allergies or sensitivities, that's, a whole other issue. But even in terms of toxins, this is a huge issue. So can you talk a little bit about what were the physical symptoms that you were going through that shifted and were released once you eliminated, toxins and fragrances?
Sure. So, for me, I had migraine headaches that I suffered from at least 3 times a month. And when I'm talking migraine headaches, it put me down. I couldn't function, vomiting, needed to be dark. I also would lose the vision on my left side when I had my migraines. Headaches every single day. I did not live without a headache happening. And then the migraines happened several times a month. And honestly, I had gotten so accustomed to living like that I didn't know any other way anymore. I had been to so many neurologists, so many different things, and put on so many different medications, and nothing ever helped with it. And so that was one of the issues I had. And then when it comes to female issues and reproductive issues, I had horrible things going on with my period, from just bleeding to the point where you couldn't keep enough stuff down there to catch it all, right? So cramping and cycles that wouldn't ever end, and just all kinds of different things going on there. Periods that were so irregular, from not having them at all to then that gushing, and no answers. Well, everything is normal. Your labs are normal. This is normal. I have women who would love to have, a cycle like yours. Really? No, thanks.
You're like, really? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Okay, but how's that help me? There's something wrong with my body and we need to find it out. And I just wasn't getting any answers. And I did go to different doctors because sometimes I felt like they didn't want to hear what you had to say. And so I would go to a different doctor. I'm like, listen, I need you to spend some time with me and hear what I have to say. Don't just pop in here, do an exam, and then pop out and write me a script. I want you to, know who I am and what I'm dealing with. I went into menopause at the age of 36.
Wow, so early.
Very early. Normal women normal women. 47 is the average age for women to start menopause. And so, and I was tested and I was in full blown menopause. And so I had all the symptoms going on with it. I share this story because we think of menopause symptoms of hot flashes and night sweats and not being able to think and those type of things, right? But
Yeah.
what we don't attribute to it is the psychological aspect of it and the emotions of it. And when we first started coming down to Arizona, we lived in our motorhome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, you know, you had the bedroom door. My husband's always been an earlier riser than I am. And when I would walk out of the bedroom, he was, you know, looking at me just real quizzitively. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to see which Aimee's coming out for the day."
Oh,
You know, and it was like, I had no idea how badly I was harming my relationships because of my emotional imbalance that was
yeah.
happening. And that's a big deal for us women. And I knew sometimes when things were out of whack emotionally, but then you still didn't feel like you had any control over it.
Yeah, well, when you feel badly too, it's hard to be in a good mood. I mean, you just don't feel good, right? And
No,
you brought up something that I really want to highlight, and I think is really important. That I feel like frequently people, and especially women, when they go to the doctor and something isn't right, you're basically just told, "Oh, this is all in your head," or "Things are fine," or "quote unquote normal." Which, by the way, most of the time when people are getting labs, it's because there's something wrong. Most people aren't getting labs when they're healthy, so you are being compared to other people that are getting some tests because something's wrong. So there, you know, the sort of metric for what's even normal, I think, is way off for that reason. And I had a similar story. So I had polycystic ovary syndrome. I had really bad periods growing up, to the point where like I would feel nauseous and like basically like I had the flu every
right,
month, like completely debilitated, you know, sometimes can't get out of bed, gushing like you're talking about
right,
too. And it was just like, that's just normal. And now that I've healed my body, I'm like, no, that isn't normal. Like,
right,
if you are suffering from periods like that, you don't have to.
right.
Basically, there's something going on that can be resolved and healed, and it's just a matter of figuring it out. And also, if a doctor says, you know, this is psychological, or you know, everything's normal, and you don't feel right, don't listen. Find someone who's going to work with you. And in my case, they were just like, "You're depressed. Here's the depression medication." You know, and it was like, well,
Yes,
I
yes,
don't feel good right now. I'm not mentally, you know, in a very good place, but it's not because I'm a mentally depressed person. Not that there's anything wrong with depression, but I just knew inherently, like, this is a
that's not
symptom of whatever is going on in my body, and I don't feel good. So then, of course, mentally, I don't feel good. You know,
right,
so
right.
yeah, it's so
Yeah.
frustrating. So how did you figure this out? Like, because it sounds like the doctors were just saying like everything's fine.
Well, and that's the interesting thing too, Laura, is because you know, we just assume that this is normal. This is normal to feel this way. And like you said, we don't understand how badly we're feeling until we get on the other side and feel better.
Right.
And we'll talk about that after a bit. But I actually had this friend that kept inviting me to these um, class, a presentation, whatever you want to call it. And it was on essential oils. And I was not going to do anything with essential oils. I mean, that was like hippie stuff. It was voodoo. It was not stuff that worked. And, you know, and so I ignored her invitation for a year, but she kept
Mhm.
inviting me. And so I finally said, all right, I'll come, you know, if you leave me alone. And so I went, and honestly, Laura, they passed these oils around, and I'm like, these stink. Who in their right mind would use these, right? I wanted nothing to do with any of it. But something apparently was catching me during that class. I did like the smell of peppermint. I really did like that one, but that was the
Yeah,
only
that was pretty universally good, I think.
It is. So, but I did ask her because I was in the throes of all that menopause symptoms, the emotions, the night sweats,
Right.
can't think, you know, all of that stuff. And I asked her, well, you got anything in that little bag of tricks that will help with that? And she put some stuff on my forearms and she said, yeah, I do. Try this out. Call me tomorrow. Let me know how you sleep. And I'm like, sleep? I didn't even ask about sleep, right? I'm just asking about this other stuff. I slept for the first time in like years, through the night. And that's all it took. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but if it's going to help me sleep, I'm all about that. And
Yeah.
so I reached out to her and I signed up, and then I just started digging into what is this all about? Is there another avenue of learning how to heal my body that isn't what mainstream is teaching us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think this is really important. And, unfortunately, I feel like you have to be really, really sick to a point that's really pretty crazily sick before you sometimes get taken seriously by doctors. I had to self-diagnose most of what was going on. Like I diagnosed, and then I went to the doctor for confirmation. Like, okay, I think I figured this out. Can you test me? And then they're like, oh yeah, you have polycystic ovary syndrome, or, whatever it is. And the other pieces that you brought up, which I think is also really important, is just how important hormones are.
Yeah.
Like if your hormones are messed up, even like a little bit, if they're off, you aren't going to be able to sleep. Your emotions are going to be all over the place. And unfortunately, one of the standard responses in sort of the traditional, Western medical system is to put you on synthetic hormones for whatever. And like, I hear some people may react well to that. I did not. Like when I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, they put me on the pill to just try to help regulate my cycles. And then prior to that, I had tried to go on the pill, just for birth control. And each time I turn into like a lunatic, crazy woman. And so it was like the only solution that was being given to me was basically not an option because of the impact that it had on my body. So like when I get on synthetic hormones like the pill, I immediately gain like 30 pounds. I don't want to have sex anyway. So the whole point of like birth control becomes like besides the point, because I don't want to have sex anyway. And then my emotions just go crazy. Yeah. And I'll never forget, there was one time I just started and I was in college and I was in my, the like office of one of my professors, and she said something that was just kind of a normal thing. And I like burst into tears and I could not stop sobbing. And I remember thinking like, I don't even understand why I'm crying. Like this doesn't even make sense, but I was still doing it. And I think when your hormones are off like that, like it's not logical. You can't reason with yourself. Your body is just on this emotional roller coaster. And unfortunately, I think the experience you've had and I've had is fairly typical, where women go in looking for help and it's just like, oh, everything's fine. And it's like, no, it's not fine. And we need to be advocates for ourselves and then find someone who's going to listen, whether it's, an oils person or an alternative health practitioner, or hopefully, there's a doctor that can help you as well.
I would say for your listeners, here's a couple things. Number one is, your body, it. So listen to it. Number two is traditional doctors, and I am not against traditional doctors. There is absolutely a time and a place for them, but they're trained to treat the symptom. That's what they're trained to do. It has nothing to do with good or bad. That's what they do. They're trained to treat the symptom. You need to find yourself, excuse me, a good functional medicine practitioner, because a functional medicine practitioner is going to get to the root. They're not just looking at the symptom, because the symptom is the symptom. It's not, it's something that's happening to your body because there's something else wrong. And a functional doctor is going to get down to the bottom of that. The other side of the coin is traditional medicine. You alluded to it about the testing process that happens. Here's how it works. Parameters for any kind of test labs that you get done are based upon 95% of the population. They take out the highest scores and the lowest scores, and then they average it out to deem what is the average. People, 95% of the population, 60% of the population right now has a chronic disease.
Right.
40% of that 60 have multiple chronic diseases. So your baseline, your averages of what they deem to be normal is based off a sick human being. I don't want my lab test to be based upon someone who is sick. I want it to be based upon someone who is healthy, so I know where I need to get to. And a functional medicine practitioner is going to use a wellness point, not the averages of the whole society.
Yeah, I think this is so important. And I think one of the things that COVID-19 or coronavirus is really highlighting is just how sick our society is. And to me, I think, yes, coronavirus, COVID-19 it's very serious. I'm not denying that, that it's a serious pathogen that we need to be aware of. But what it's showing to me is if this many people are getting sick, really sick, it's because they have underlying health issues for the most part. And they're showing, like, for example, I think the stat I saw in Italy was like 90% of the people who died had one or two serious medical issues and were of a certain age or older. And then I've had so many people say to me, wow, but some of the people are younger and they don't have chronic health issues. And I'm like, well, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. Maybe not, but like I was one of those people who for years had some major health issues that were undiagnosed or were deemed to be normal. And that doesn't mean that I was a healthy person. Like I had to go through this major health journey to decode and figure some of that stuff out. So just because the doctor has labeled you healthy or normal doesn't mean that that's actually a high bar of health, sadly.
Well, for instance, here's another one, irritable bowel syndrome. Okay.
Yeah.
We're now giving a label to a symptom. Irritable bowel syndrome, excuse me, I can't talk this morning, is simply a symptom, but now we've made it a syndrome and given it a label and just, giving you prescriptions for it, when what's going on is your bowel, your digestive system is saying, hey, wait a minute, you are putting something in your body that my body is saying, no good, get it away from me. I need to figure out what that is, not just, put a pill at it or label it as, hey, I've got IBS or leaky gut syndrome. Yeah. That's a symptom. Let's find out why.
Yeah, completely. And also a part of this whole sort of approach that I think is flawed is that it's like, just, this is what the diagnosis is and you're kind of stuck with it, because, that's what most people are told. Like, here's the pill, but you just kind of have to manage it, instead of like, okay, well, what can we do to heal this on a deeper level? So for me, with my polycystic ovary syndrome, diagnosis, basically their solution was to give me the pill, which would then manage and regulate my hormone cycle, but didn't address like why my hormones were messed up to begin with, why my cycle had gotten off. And at the root of it is really insulin resistance, basically sugar sensitivity or things that process to sugar. So once I changed my diet, my period got regular and I started being able to sleep again. Like you, I had insomnia. I couldn't sleep, and that'd never been the case for me. So I just think it's really important to, just because we've gotten a diagnosis and we're basically told like, oh, you just kind of have this, that is not necessarily the case. And there's so many different resources for healing.
Right. And the reason I do what I do, and I really feel called to give this a voice, and why I'm called the Toxin Terminator, is most people, if you talk to them about living a healthy lifestyle, they think of food, how we eat, and they think of movement. Am I getting any kind of exercise and that type of thing? But we don't think about what are our environmental exposures. And I specifically talk about the home environment. So when we talk about hormones being out of balance, there are so many products, especially us as women, that we are using on a daily basis that we wouldn't even think about are absolutely disrupting our hormone function. And we need to take a look at that, because maybe you've done all the things of cleaning up the diet and you're getting your movement in, but you're still not being able to heal whatever it is that's happening with you. Are you taking a look at what you're absorbing into your body through the products that you're using every single day?
Yeah, I think this is really important. And for me, my journey was first looking at food. I think that is a very important area to look at. Like in my case, I was eating sort of standard American diet, very carb-based diet, which just for my body in particular, it just doesn't handle it well. I wasn't even eating like, a super bad diet compared to what most people would consider. It was just kind of like the normal American thing.
Yeah.
And I had to address that. And I also had sedentary work, working at a desk all day, and I changed that. But then the last thing for me was those toxins.
Yeah.
And I remember being shocked because I felt like, I feel like I'm pretty healthy, and it was like my body was just telling me, no, something's wrong. And it took me a while to figure it out because there's so much greenwashing. And if you don't know that term, it just means like companies that say they're eco-friendly or green, and they're really not. So if
Oh
you go
yeah.
to like any natural store, health food store, Sprouts, Whole Foods, they're full of companies that are doing this. It's called greenwashing, where you think, oh, this is in this store, or this is in this natural section, it must be healthy, and they're still full of toxins. So just because a brand is in that kind of store, or it's labeled to be non-toxic, healthy, whatever, you have to do your own research. Unfortunately, at least that's what I found, because there
Yeah.
were a lot of products I was using that are specifically known as green, non-toxic brands, which really weren't very different from some of the major kind of chemically
Right.
oriented brands.
Right. Well, it's a marketing ploy, and companies have learned that. People are looking for natural. People are looking for safe. People are looking for, you know, whatever the words are that they are using. It's just simply a marketing ploy that gets used to give that false sense of security that you're using a good, product.
Yeah, it's so terrible that companies can get away with this, but on a legal level, natural, a lot of things, non-toxic things, they don't it doesn't mean anything. So
No.
you sadly have to do your own research. And I just have learned there's certain companies, for example, where generally their products I can use, but even still, I'd find there would be one brand where maybe on a, let's say, EWG working group scale, might get a D, and then some of the other products might get an A or B.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think is confusing is now some of these companies that have helped us with rating toxins have started to get bought out by some of these bigger companies. So I don't even feel like they're as trustworthy as they used to be.
Right. And what I tell people, because listen, going down this journey is really overwhelming, right? If you think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, everything could be harmful to my body. What do I do? And I don't want people to be in fear. I don't want them to feel like they can't do things. So things like the EWG Healthy Living app, which is free, things like Think Dirty, which are free, they're a good starting point if you want an easy button where you can scan your product and you can see what the safety rating is. And I say it's a good starting point because what they'll do is not only does it give a safety rating, but it'll tell you why. If it gets a poor rating, it'll say what ingredient is in there that's giving the poor score. So you can start getting an idea of what is it that I want to be looking for. And then I teach people, read the labels, just like you do your food packages. If you're still buying stuff in packages, right? We pay attention to sodium and sugar and calorie and carbs and, all of that stuff. You want to do the same thing with your personal care. Start reading the labels.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And then just to highlight that there are some of these companies that unfortunately I think have been really helpful tools and resources have been bought out by some of these
Yeah.
bigger mass companies. And there are situations where there was a particular product that used to have like a poor rating, and now it has a high rating, and it's the same product without changes in ingredients. So yeah, it is something
Yeah.
we have to be careful. And basically I just do your own research and just don't trust, everything. Just like we can't trust the news to be accurate. I think it's the same with this kind of thing, unfortunately.
Well, and it is, and that's not to spread fear or doom and
No.
gloom or anything like that. It's just, you have to be your best advocate, and I'm with you because I'll see some products that are given, a 2 or a 3. I mean, in my opinion, anything with a safety score of 3 or lower is okay to come into my house,
Yeah.
but I'll see stuff and it's like, I would not purchase that. I wouldn't. And it's getting a 2 or a 3. I've seen things that I would purchase that are getting a 4 or 5. And it's like, wait a minute, why are they giving that rating when I've read the ingredients and I'm okay, what this, so, there's also companies just like the greenwash. There are companies that generally will have safe products that you can use and know, okay, here's a company that I do like, and I can go with their products and feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, one of the companies I've personally found that's good is Attitude. I think they're based in Canada, but all their products are EWG verified, and I've just found their products to be clean. So if you're looking for an easy choice, and also just to read the ingredients and start to notice patterns. Like for me, I noticed that there's two ingredients that are in, by the way, like I would say 90 to 95% of products, limonene and linalool, which are natural in origin, based in plants. But when I use them, my eyes water and burn, and they do have a high rating, meaning like a high toxicity rating on
Yes.
EWG, but they're still in like almost everything.
Well, because it's a thickening agent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's used in products to create that thickening agent, you know. So there's what you'll find is there's certain things that you'll identify, you know, parabens, sodium lauryl sulfate, phthalates, fragrance is a no-go. 1,4-dioxane is a no-go. Lanolin, you know, is something that you don't want to have. Formaldehyde, you know, you'll just start learning. There are specific things. And when you avoid, so for instance, sodium lauryl sulfate, if you avoid that particular ingredient, you're not going to get 1,4-dioxane, because it's a byproduct. You know, so you know, there's certain, just like with food, if you eat non-processed food, you're not going to get all the rest of the stuff. You know, so if you avoid certain ingredients,
Right.
you're not going to get the others.
Yeah, I think learning to look at the labels is super important. And then also just focus on, one thing at a time, not get
Yeah.
overwhelmed. But when you're buying, let's say something's running out and you're buying a new one, just do your research on that product,
Yeah.
and it is a learning process. Like I bought products when I was first going through this, and I thought, okay, this is green. And then the more I learned, I'm like, okay, that's really not that green. But I learned, it's like you're just figuring out a new system. And I do think there's so much more choice now than there used to be. Like every day there's more and more.
Absolutely. You know, so like a couple, the network marketing companies are great in this arena, because they are putting out a product for a purpose. And if you don't like network marketing companies, I have found like The Honest Company as somebody you can buy from Amazon. They've got a ton of personal care products that are really good.
No, they have gotten busted though for the labels not matching what's in their product.
There's some, well, again, I don't know the resources behind some of that. I haven't personally found anything that I have found offensive in their products. I'm not familiar with, but I've heard from a million.
An independent lab tested some of their products and were found to basically that what was on the label was not what was in the product. And I'm just speaking from personal experience that I used to buy The Honest Company, and then I would have those same problems, so like the burning water eyes and the things so it's like, for me, it's a no-go. But I think this is just the point. You try it and see how it's working for you.
Yeah. And I was not aware of that, but check that out. Sometimes we'll get reports on stuff like that. You got to follow the source of the report, but if your experience has been that the product is bad, then the product is bad. You have to be able to, deem what's good and bad for you. A company that you can purchase in store, even like Walmart, is called Shea Moisture.
I love them. Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
So, if you don't want to buy online, you want to be able to see it. They've got like shampoos and conditioners and body washes and face washes, and I'm trying to think of what else they've got. Lotions.
Mm-hmm.
Some of theirs are I think there's synthetic fragrance in it, although it says it's not, but my body reacts because I have picked some of those up. So again, certainly a better choice than some of the other products that we use. So just, try some different things out.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing. It's just a process of trial and error. And then, just know that it is a learning process. You're figuring out it's a new thing, and just, it is a learning curve.
It took me 3 years to get completely chemical free in my home, from what I cleaned with, what I did laundry with, my personal care products, hair, makeup, all of that stuff. It took 3 years just because I was bullheaded, number one. And number two is making sure I was finding good replacement products. So it's a process.
Yeah. And you'll learn through process of elimination, what is bothering you, what isn't. Like for me, it took me a long time, for example, to figure out that magnesium stearate is something that I react poorly to. And this is an ingredient that's in a lot of makeup and
Yeah.
as well as a lot of supplements.
Yes.
And again, just like limonene and linalool, it's in a lot of supplements in particular. And I would be like looking at labels, trying to figure out what is it that my body is not liking,
Yeah.
trying to cross over, like I would take something and be like, oh, and the same thing with makeup. Like if I use makeup with magnesium stearate, my eyes water and burn. And it's in a lot of like powder stuff, like eyeshadow,
Yes.
face powder, blush, whatever. And so it is a process, and it's okay if it might feel like it's slow going, but it's so worth it.
Oh, it so is. I mean, the way I feel today at 55 compared to what I felt at 30 is night and day. And that's, we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, is you really do not know how bad you feel until you get onto the other side and you make some positive changes in your life. And it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I was dragging that much, that I had so much brain fog, that my skin, the good thing about social media is you get those memories that come up.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, oh my word, look at my skin back then compared to what it looks like now. And I believe that a lot of our physical, outward, it comes from the inside out. It's the things that we're putting in and on our body that are creating what we see visually.
Absolutely. Like our skin is the major detox organ, one of the major detox organs for the body. So if you have bad skin, it's like your body is trying to purge that. And it was the same thing for me when about, what is that, 11 years ago, I turned 30, and I felt horrible. Like I felt like, I remember thinking this is what it's like to get older, because I had gained weight and my knees hurt and I couldn't sleep. And it's like so ridiculous now, because I'm like, no, I was just unhealthy and unhappy. So I'm 41 now, and I feel like I have more energy. I feel like I look good. I was really struggling. I had these bad cystic breakouts like everywhere. And it was not something where you like put a zit cream on it, it goes away. Like it was deep and I couldn't figure it out. It was basically, there were some health issues I needed to address. But yeah, I think when we start to have these kinds of things, it's our body communicating with us, and we just need to figure out what the messages are. And then again, there's so many things that we are taught are just kind of natural, quote unquote, I'm putting this in quotes, natural part of aging, that I think are not. It's just basically our body getting run down because of toxins, unhealthy lifestyle, unhealthy emotional situations, and then we start to break down.
And that's so true. Have been spending a lot of time with my parents over the last 8 weeks because of a surgery. And, my dad was making a comment to me about how, everybody, especially once you get over the age of 50, just ends up being on an arsenal of pills. That's just the aging process. And I'm like, no, it's not, Dad.
No,
you don't have to be. Oh, yes, you do. You just wait, and I choose not to. I know that there's things I can do with my body, and I've got 12 grandbabies, and I want to be the grandma that's playing with them, that's down on the ground with them. I'm running with them, and I can be, and if I had stayed on the path that I was on, I wouldn't be able to be that person. I would be sitting in the chair watching life go by rather than out there living that life.
Yeah, I think that's so great. And we can have, vitality and health and energy and feel good and sleep. Oh my gosh, this has been so fun. I love your story and everything that you're doing. So is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap up for today?
Not at all. It's everything is a journey. And I just encourage you to, just look inside your soul and figure out what your journey is. And then just take it a step at a time. You can have a life full of vitality and energy and all the things that you want if you choose to create it.
I think that's so true. And just because other people tell you something isn't possible doesn't mean that it is.
Exactly, exactly. And that might be some of that negative energy you just need to get away from, you know?
Totally, totally.
Because we
Yeah.
didn't even talk about the mental aspect of toxicity, but there's a ton of that,
Mm,
you know? So yeah, that's another
absolutely. Yeah, totally. We better just have you back to talk about that. Well, this has been great. If people want to learn more, connect with you, and I hear you have a new book coming out, I'd love to learn how people can connect with you and what else you have happening.
Absolutely. So a couple things I want to give the audience is I offer a free toxic risk assessment. So if you just want to look at what's my exposure, I don't even know, you know, what is going on in my life. It takes you less than 5 minutes to complete, and it'll really open your eyes to, ooh, I didn't realize I might be getting some toxins from here. It'll give you a score. And after you complete the assessment, you'll get my free toxic home shopping guide. So I give you some of my everyday products that I really like to use and I've been using in my home for the last 7 years. And you can get that through my website, which is just AIMEECARLSON.com. It's just my name, AimeeCarlson.com. And from there, you can go to the podcast. If you want to chat with me, send me an email. It's all through there. All my social medias through the website. So that's the easiest way to connect.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Aimee, for talking with us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely, Laura. You're just a light that just shines so bright. I enjoy being
Oh,
part of
you
your day.
too. You too. Thank you again. And thank you everybody for listening. If you'd like more information about me, you can go to my website, healingpowers.net. You can find me at Twitter at Laura Powers, Instagram at Laura Powers 44, and on Facebook at Healing Powers.